Welcome to one more ChiroSecure's show here. My name is Roberto Monaco with a Chiro Speaking company. Before we start the show today, I want to send my love to ChiroSecure for sponsoring the show. Without them, we could not have this show here. In today's show, we're going to talk about one more closing mistake that chiropractors make during talks. So this show, if you are or if you want to do talks in a community, corporate lectures, dinner with the doctor programs, patient orientation classes, workshops, videos, then this training is for you. As a recap, by the way, you can find these videos. There's 2 previous trainings that I did at the Facebook page from ChiroSecure. The first training I did in February, I talk about identity expansion, how chiropractors, they have to see themselves differently. The second show that we did in April, I talk about the first 3 closing mistakes that chiropractors make when doing talks. And those mistakes were, number 1, doctors develop the talk first without thinking about the offer. The second mistake was that doctors feel uncomfortable doing the close. And the third mistake was that doctors don't create enough engagement during the talk. Now, in today's show, I'll be talking about one of the biggest mistakes that chiropractors make during talks is this one. They don't tell enough stories during the presentation. All right? So if you have, by the way, not only group presentation, but one-on-one, you got to be able to tell great stories. So this whole show is going to be about storytelling. So Roberto, what is a story? Because nowadays people say, hey, just tell your story, to the chiropractic story. So what is a story? So I want to work with a definition here. And you may want to write this down. A story is a sequence of events where a character is trying to achieve a worthy goal and has to face some barriers along the way. Let me repeat. A story is a sequence of events. There's a beginning, middle, end, where a character could be you, could be your patients, is trying to achieve a worthy goal, and in the process has to overcome some barriers. Now, sometimes in storytelling, the character achieves the goal, sometimes does not achieve the goal. Now, I'm going to circle back to the definition. When I teach storytelling for chiropractors, one of the questions they ask me is this, man, why should I use stories in a presentation? They're like, all these scientific studies proving that story is persuasive. But I have some fun I want to show with you, okay? Can you see this? This is a fake banana. Fake banana. Now, years ago, psychologists, they want to know if you get a random object, like a fake banana, just like this one, and you attach a story, if that alone would increase the value of the fake banana. And as a matter of fact, they did studies called significant objects. They did this with over 100 objects. Basically, they went around and they spent $1, 50 cents, 25 cents, and they bought these random objects. And then they had professional copywriters to make up a story about the object. And what they did, they uploaded to eBay. Now, someone was on eBay, saw the fake banana, read the story, and they want to know if that story was powerful enough to cause someone to pay more. And the results were incredible. So the fake banana, an example, the market price of a fake banana was 25 cents, and it was sold for $76. And just like the fake banana, they have like over 100 objects that prove that when you attach a story into an object, increases the value in the eyes of the beholder. That's why it's important. One of the things that you want to do in your presentations is to be able to tell stories. Now, the other reason is because in storytelling, it creates a word called identification. If you want to write this down, identification. And identification happens that when a doctor of chiropractic tells a story, the audience of one of many, if he or her can identify himself or herself with the character of the story, you know what happens? Connection goes up and resistance goes down. That's why when you're doing talks, people say, Roberto, people want to judge me, or they're going to resist my message. And the only reason they do that is because you don't create enough identification during your talks. Now, when it comes to your practice and your talks, there are specific things that you want to do in your story. One of them is this. You want to create the largest amount of identification. So how do you do that in a talk? Okay. So by the way, if you're doing this one-on-one presentation is easy, but in a talk, you want to make sure you have a story about a male, a story about a female, story about a child, and a story about an older person. Now, obviously, if you're doing a doctor's report to one person and it's a woman, then you're going to have, if you can, you're going to pull your what? A story about a woman that has similar challenges and goals, right? But in a group setting, then you want to, because in most of the groups that you have, you're going to have male, female, and then they have maybe kids at home. So, and I see this, look, I review talks, chiropractic talks all the time. And I notice that a lot of times we tell like maybe one or two stories about a male only, or you tell a story about female only. And then only part of the audience identify with the character, the patient, and kind of like alienate the other parts. So let me give an example here. I have one of my doctors that I coach, and he was doing this group doctors reports, was closing around 60%. So on my first coaching session, I said, hey, can you please send me your talk and your slides? So he sent me his presentation, a review. And his talk was around 42 minutes. In 42 minutes, he had what? 0 stories. 0. And I said, man, you know what we're going to do? You're going to cut some content out, literally take some content out, and you're going to replace with a male story, a female story, a story about a child, because then you're going to create maximum identification. And he did that. And then his conversions now are up to 85%, which is way better, because now the audience member can identify himself or herself with the audience. Another example that I have is one chiropractic speaker, and I'm not going to mention his name. He's a very popular, but his talk, he was going to chiropractic events, doing talks, and he wasn't be able to convert enough people. And when I look at the talk, was all data, all facts. And I said, man, you're going to cut your amount of content in half and replace with the stories and replace with analogies. And again, conversion go up. Remember this, guys. This is such an important principle I'm going to share with you. People can counter-argue your facts. People cannot counter-argue your experiences. Let me say again. When you just, quote unquote, I want to use a graphic word here. It's not a terrible word, but I like to say people vomit information, right? When they just like, here's all my information that I have. Man, it's too much. And when it's too much, the audience freezes. So what happens is you want to reduce the amount of information, the facts. As a matter of fact, because they counter-argue. And then what you're going to do, you're going to replace with the stories, and you're going to replace with what? With analogies as well. So one of the takeaways that I want you to do is for all the communication you have, you say, okay, am I creating the maximum amount of identification? Do I have a male, a female, an older person, a child? In the talks is a must. Now, some stories are going to be longer and some stories are going to be shorter. So that's one takeaway. The second takeaway is this, that I believe that in storytelling, this is what I call patient stories. In addition to patient stories, you're going to be able to tell your story. Why you do what you do. Why you do what you do. And maybe that can be one of the topics I do for a future training here on personal story. But it's very important when you are in front of an audience, and that if you watch my first live training that I did for ChiroSecure, I get into my story, how chiropractic has changed my life. So you got to be able in your presentations all group talks to always use your personal story. Now, one of the questions people ask me is, Roberto, should I tell my story in the beginning of the talk, in the middle of the talk, or in the end? And the answer is depends, right? Depends on the context of your talk, depends if the audience may have heard you before or not. But a great rule that I have about storytelling is this, that for the majority of the talks you're going to give, you're always going to tell your story in the beginning of the presentation, because you're not telling a story to tell how good you are. You're telling a story to help you frame how chiropractic is going to change their lives. So basically, you're talking about yourself for them, if that makes sense. People think, well, I'm going to be talking about myself. You're not talking about yourself. You're talking about why you're passionate about chiropractic, but to create a context for them, right? So one type of story that you can use is the patient stories you talk about. The second type of story is your personal story, why you're there speaking. And the third type of story that I use all the time, I'm going to give a gift here, which is really powerful, is this. It's called the Swiss Army knife story. Now, Roberto, what is the Swiss Army knife story? It's a story that you can use for everything else. So we have your patient stories, you have your personal story, and a Swiss Army knife is a story you can use for everything else. Let me give an example. One of my clients called me up and say, man, I need a story, Roberto, to close my talks with power and emotion. And man, my closes are kind of weak. Do you have something for me? I say, no problem, I have something for you. So here's the story that I share with my client. I want to give that to you. By the way, feel free to use in your next talk, and you're going to thank me, and you're going to take ChiroSecure. Here you go. So let's say you're doing your talk, you're about to close, and you go like this. You go, now guys, before I leave here, I want to share a quick story with you. There's a family that had a very cool tradition. Every year when someone was having a birthday, they get together, they ate chocolate cake, and then the person who's having birthday, let's say the person was turning 15 years old, they pull a piece of paper, and that person read 15, wishes and goals. Next year, someone is turning 30, they get together, they ate the chocolate cake, and that person pull another, hey, I have 30 wishes, right? So one year, dad's turning 40. Everybody got together, they ate chocolate cake, and the dad goes, this year, I'm taking everybody to Disneyland. People like, hey, this year, I'm finally running my first triathlon. People like, yay, that is so awesome. And they went on, right? Next year, dad's turning 41. People got together, they ate the chocolate cake, and dad pulled a very small piece of paper. And he said, this year, I have just one wish. I want to have my health back. You see, the dad was diagnosed with cancer. And when you have your health, you have many wishes. When you don't have your health, you just have one. It is my goal as a doctor of chiropractic to make sure you and your family have as many wishes as possible. Just sign up for a consultation and I see you in my office. Right? And you see the emotion go, so my client try, and you just like, dude, unbelievable. So thanks ChiroSecure for providing that story for you, because they sponsor the show here. So that's the mindset here. So as a recap from today's show, stories are important because stories create identification. Stories increase the value of your message. Okay, there's more reasons, by the way. You just don't have a lot of time today. And in influence, there are primarily three types of stories. There's your patient stories. There's your personal story. I might want to do a show around the subject, is how you talk about yourself in a way that helps you frame the message. And you have what I call the Swiss Army knife story, is a stories for everything else. And I just gave an example of a one-wish story that you can use. I have clients using to open up a talk or to close a talk. So feel free to use it. And the next show, we're going to have Dr. Sherry McAllister, a rock star. She's going to be here with you. So thank you so much. Thank you, ChiroSecure, for sponsoring one more show. And any more information about our services, you can go to the ChiroSpeakingCompany.com. And please feel free to leave your comments below here, any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.